Hello. Hi everyone, welcome back from the break, or welcome here if you didn't attend this morning. It's now my very big pleasure to introduce the next guest, the creator of the Norwegian worldwide success Skam. Here is Julie Andem.
Where do I?
Du kan sätta det där på gula.
Okay.
Welcome. So this session is part of the European Showrunner Think Tank, and that's a series of industry talks aimed at discussing the challenges and opportunities of the showrunner position in Europe. And it's a component of the European Showrunner Programme, and that is funded by the Creative Europe Media Programme of the European Union, the Film and Media Fund NRW, and Netflix. And it's headed by Danish showrunner Jeppe Järvi Gram and hosted by IFS, so Internationale Filmschule Köln. So I want to welcome everyone following online to this session as well. Okay, that's the introduction.
Yes.
Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Great to be here.
You've been a dream guest of mine for 10 years. I'm going to
Really?
try to tone down the fangirl.
You didn't tell me this.
I kept it for the stage.
Okay, perfect.
So we're going to talk about showrunning, and you were a showrunner actually before we even kind of talked about it or did it here in the Nordics. Skam was published in 2015, and you created the show, you wrote all the episodes, you directed all the episodes. And but I wanted to go back a little bit. You have a background in advertising.
Yeah.
And then you kind of stumbled into TV. How did that come about? And also, what did you bring with you from the advertising world?
Yeah, I went to advertising school, and I really wanted to be an art director, and I thought that was like my mission in life. But I think I quickly realized during when we did like the last year, we worked with clients, that I wasn't really good at working with clients because it sort of felt like if I had an idea or a solution to a problem and they disagreed, I kind of felt that they were idiots. So, and you can't really work with clients like that. And then I got an internship at the television production company. And I would make like flyers and DVD cover and just identity for television shows. But I ended up sitting in a room with writers. So I would sort of like pitch in when they were writing, and that's how it started, I guess. Yeah.
And the creation of Skam has kind of turned into this lore in the industry.
Yes.
I think you targeted 60-year-old girls, you did like 50 in-depth interviews, you were stalking teenagers on the schoolyard, and I think we're not actually going to go that much into detail about the creation of Skam, because I think everyone in the room has seen the series, knows about this, and we're going to talk on a more kind of general level. But I do think we should watch a clip just to get into the mood. So
yeah.
Let's watch a clip. Yeah,
that was fun to see. It's been a while.
That was from the first season. And that's Sana, she was then the main character in the fourth season. And I was kind of late on the Skam train, so I started watching it when there were 3 seasons already.
Yes.
And then all the speculation about who's going to be the fourth season main character, and I was very happy it was her. So Skam was customized for short format clips. That was also a thing that was quite new. So you published the clip when the clip took place. So say it was a party on a Friday night, a clip from that party was published.
Yes.
And then all these clips were from that week were made into that one episode. So how did this affect the writing process? That there were clips, but then they were
Yeah,
together?
I think it's you have to write in a different way, because you're not getting the audience back for the next episode. You're really getting the audience back for the next clip, the next day. So I think you have to think about cliffhangers in a different way, like always making sure there is a dramatic question every day in every scene, not only in every episode. So I think that's the biggest difference. And then also, you sort of have to think about time and when it's published. So I've been in many situations writing shows like this, because I wrote shows like this for tweens before Skam, where you sort of have written an episode and you haven't really looked at the calendar, and it turns out it's Easter, so you can't have them being at school, stuff like that, boring stuff. But that's,
Calendar.
I think those are the two things that affects the writing the most and makes it different from ordinary drama series.
And of course, every series consists of individual scenes.
Yes.
So what would you say can be learned from this focus on the individual scenes when considering the longer story arc?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, as I said, it's probably making very sure that every scene has a dramatic question that makes the audience want to go back. But not every scene, it's not fair to say, because not every clip is just one scene. It's more like a short in itself. So I guess did that answer your question? Or are you looking for something else?
Not exactly. I'm thinking more like for someone that is writing a whole season.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know. You don't need to be able to answer this question. I couldn't answer it, but somehow like that detailed focus maybe is something that's needed, but maybe it's a time thing that when you write a longer thing, you can't be that focused on the short.
Oh, I don't know. Because I think about the whole episode. I think about of course, the season and plot the storylines for the season. And then I think about the episode in general, but then also I think about the scene as a short film. So it's three different
Kind of
sort of
how
layers
far away you
of
are,
plotting. Yeah.
So a big part of being a showrunner is, of course, the writing in itself. What would you say are the most important things to have as a writer?
Oh, as a writer?
Tools, support, whatever.
Well, I think you should be able to be lonely at long periods of time, I guess. But if you're talking about tools from other people, like producers.
Yeah, because there's a lot of producers and broadcasters here, so.
Yeah, I think generally I can talk for me, but I can also try to say something for all the other writers, because I think every writer is different, and there's not necessarily one thing every writer need.
But what do you need then?
I think I need a balance between enough time to write what I'm supposed to write, but also pressure. The pressure to perform, because I feel like every time I'm writing a new episode, I'm thinking, how do I write? I don't know how to write. I've just been bullshitting everyone for all this time, and I go.
You will be found out.
Yes, and I go into like this dark place, and I don't want to write. I feel like it's too hard. What if this is the one time I can't write, and it's gonna be really bad? So I'll rather just watch something on television or do something else if I don't have a deadline. If I don't have somebody at the other end saying, you got it, like, I need this shit by this date. So it's a balance there, I think. And of course it helps having people believing in your taste and your voice and your writing, because everyone has different taste and not everyone understands my writing necessarily, and I feel energized when I have a producer that understands me and the story I want to tell, and that helps a lot.
And I said before the extensive research for Skam. I mean, there's so many examples, like, I don't know, David Simon for The Wire, like living several years in that world. How important do you think research is for the writing process?
For me, it's very important. But again, I have to say, because there's so many writers out there that are really mad at me, because after Skam, every writer was sort of forced to do research, because that was a new thing, and it's sort of like how to create a hit show. A shit show. How to create a hit show. That was like the saying in the industry for a while after Skam. And it's not necessarily true. It was 100 different reasons that Skam worked the way it did at the time. I loved doing research, and especially in creating Skam, we were creating a show for teens, and NRK hadn't made anything for teens in 20 years. So we were trying to figure out who they were and what they watched at that time. So that was the reason really for the extensive research and trying to figure out, also because NRK is a public broadcaster and they have to sort of give the audience something else other than just commercial stories or success. They have, but I love doing research and finding a story within the target audience, and I think that's also closer to how you work in advertising. You kind of have this target audience, and then you try to figure out how to hit them. I love that way of working, but it's probably maybe more, a more advertising type of approach to,
And you had a mission statement for Skam, and I'm going to read it here. Skam aims to help 16-year-old girls and strengthen their self-esteem through dismantling taboos, making them aware of interpersonal mechanisms, and showing them the benefits of confronting their fears.
Wow, that's impressive.
Sounds like a copywriter
Yes,
wrote that.
yeah.
So how did this mission statement guide you throughout the writing process?
Well, it was a really good statement to have after a while, because it made decisions easier. At least when, like in season 3, when everyone started calling in from Hollywood and everywhere and wanted to be a part of this show in some kind of way, it was sort of like going back to why and for who are we making this show. We're making this show for 16-year-old girls in Norway, and that's it. And what do they need? They need this. They don't need anything from like anyone else. Or there was so many opportunities for the show at one point. So having that statement and working through it, and that everyone on the team knew that this is our mission, this is what we're doing with this show, I think that was really helpful.
And if you kind of take a step back and think about it more generally, how important do you think it is to have this kind of mission for a show?
I think, for me, it's very, I got that question the other day because I was sitting with someone who is trying to create a show, and we were discussing, and they said, but do you really need to have a mission for the show or something you want? And I had to think about that question, and I think you probably don't. But I feel it's, for me, it's easier to know why I'm doing this show. I think also because I never dreamt about writing for TV or creating TV. I sort of just ended up here, and after Skam, there's been a lot of opportunity to do different shows. How do I know what to say yes to and what to say no to? What matters to me about the stories out there? So it's sort of looking for or working with, I like working with the reason why. Why am I doing this specific show? How do I think it can be helpful to anyone out there other than entertain for a short while? That sounds really pretentious, but that's how I feel.
But I think it's good to have that kind of like core to go back to.
Yeah.
And so we are now in 2023, and during these days we've been talking about this constantly changing landscape within the drama business, and there's new players, of course, ordering local content, and so how do you see like this position of showrunner in Norway or Europe? What does it entail? How do you interpret it?
It's a hard question because I don't really, to this day, I don't really know what a showrunner does or is, because I see many different variations of it, I feel like. And also because I also direct, so it kind of blends into. But I think the most important thing is probably to have the strongest vision of the show, isn't it? Making sure that there's one vision that everyone is working towards, and staying true to that. I think that would be the most important role of a showrunner in a show.
And of course, you have to be this strong creative leader, like you said. So how does one become that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And stay that.
Yeah, it's well, you really have to believe in your own story, I guess. That's because if I'm gonna think about how I made Skam, it was so clear to me what it was supposed to be and how it needed to be done. So all the questions coming towards me that would drag the show in different directions, I knew right away what to say no and what to say yes to in terms of the show. So I think like having a strong vision rooted within yourself definitely make that job easier. And I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer how to be a good leader in general. But a lot of the work I feel like is making sure the people around you understand the vision and that they're having fun and wanting to believing in that vision they also, and that they get something personally out of it. Like, what is my DP? What is his dream? What does he want to accomplish personally within the show? There's both things you have to consider when leading other creatives, I think. So the combination, and also it's a really hard, sometimes you just, I've had moments where, because it's very vulnerable to be a writer and it's sometimes hard to believe in your own scripts. Like, I can write something and then it feels really good, and then I look at it a week later and I'm just like, this is not good at all. And then believing that initial feeling of and of course listening to other people who have read the script, but when an actor or a director or somebody else starts doubting the script or the vision, and if you're feeling at that point that you are also doubting it, you sort of just have to fake it and be strong in that moment, I think.
And now this picture has been up for a while.
Yes.
These are the different versions. It was a huge remake success as well. That's the Dutch one up in the uppermost left corner, and the other one, and that's of course the original to the left in the middle. What's to the right in the middle? What country is that?
The right in the middle. It's a Dutch one.
Okay, so what is the what the fuck? Belgium.
That's the Belgium one.
Okay,
yes.
And Druk.
That's the German.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So how we're going to talk about Skam Austin soon,
Yes.
but the European ones, how involved were you in these remake processes?
Not that much. And also, I have to say, NRK have done an incredible job in keeping the vision of the show also running through, making sure that all of these production companies around Europe are staying true to like the...
How concretely, how was that done?
Well, I think, first of all, when I have to say, when NRK told me that we're going to do a lot of remakes, or there are going to be remakes of Skam in Europe, I was sort of like, well, how will that work? It didn't seem like something I thought would work, because it felt like the show came truly from my heart, and I felt like I was probably very self-obsessed. I didn't see how anyone would copy that. Of course, it has like some formatting that you can do, but then I think when we talked about it and we figured out we talked about the main mission of the show, how the sentence you just read, how to make teenagers feel in Norway were our mission. So what if they take this concept and they do it within their own culture, and they focus on what will make it easier to be 16-year-old in Italy or in Germany. So that was the thing that we sort of set as a premises to create a series. Yeah.
So, but how much was kind of the similar, and how much was different? That maybe varies from all the...
So, yeah, it varies. And France, I think, is in season 7 or 8 now. So it's gone 11. Okay.
11?
11. Wow.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, amazing. And that's amazing. So
how does it feel to have your kind of child go out into the world?
It's amazing. It's amazing. And they've become their own series with like a huge fan base and new fan bases, because the kids grow up and they discover the show, and so it's been amazing. Yeah.
And you went to Austin to work with Skam Austin. You are credited as writer on several of the episodes there.
Yeah.
So how did that happen, and what was that like?
That was interesting. It's interesting. I kind of knew before that to go in a different country and do a remake of my own show, it wasn't necessarily like, it didn't feel like the best idea. But it was also a really good opportunity to open up working in a new market, and it was probably the best way I could get into the American market with a show that I knew better than anyone else. And I'm really glad I did. It was completely different. I have to say, the first season of Norwegian, we were 10 people creating the show. We were 5 people on set at the most, like sound, camera, 1 assistant, 1 costume, and me. We were 5 people. In Austin, we were 70, 80 people. So it's a completely different way in producing the same show. It has have some good sides and bad sides to it. I feel like it was easier to create a very intimate show in Norway, where we could play around and have fun on set and do whatever we wanted. But again, in the US, everything was set, everything was done. We could do whatever we wanted in terms of, I want this scene to be in like on a plane, and they would be like, sure. And and I was like, and at one point I was kind of testing them to see if I was like,
what did you ask for?
I want 500 extras, and they were like, fine. And and in Norway I would like struggle to get 5 extras, and we would like dress them in between like shots so that they look different in the background. And in Austin, it was just like 500 people, here they are. And it's like, I didn't even have to deal with them. Someone else was dealing with all the extras, telling them what to do. They just like appeared magically and perfectly in the shots. It was amazing. Yeah.
So having been there, having worked there, here, what do you think we in Europe could learn from the
Get
American...
more money. No.
Well, I'm not going to let you say only that, because...
Yeah.
Is there like a takeaway we could...
if I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't feel like, I always say this in Europe because I think it's true, because I believe that, or I knew, I came from NRK working in the children's department, going straight to Hollywood, so it was a complete culture shock. But I don't really feel, and I was thinking, these people are like top-notch people, they're extremely professional and they can do whatever. I think that I met some of the best people both here and there. I don't think the level of talent or professionalism is bigger over there necessarily. I think they work harder and longer, in a sense. They have longer hours. I'm not sure they are as effective as us. So it's like, it's different things, and I think it's hard to say if we can, also because most of my time I've worked at NRK public broadcasting with just like a flat structure and bring your own lunch and there's nothing. So I think NRK can learn something from the way they work over there, but they can also probably learn something about the structure and the hierarchy. There's a completely...
So what are the benefits of that you think NRK could learn?
Well, I think the biggest problem at NRK, for example, is that talent is not necessarily... everyone is treated the same. And I think that a lot of people who are talented and work in creative business, they do so because it's important to them. They work their way up there for several reasons, and one of the reasons is often because they need to be seen. They want to be seen as people. They want to be seen as talent. NRK is not necessarily that good at seeing them. It's more like, because they just have to get the job done. There's so many people working at NRK. They have this many projects. Just put whatever who is free to do the job on the project. So I think a lot of talent sometimes ends up feeling like they're not appreciated. In the US, it's like, if you're a talent, you're like a star, and they treat you like a star. And that feels good, I think, and it motivates a lot of talent. But it also, I have to say, it made me feel more lonely, because I was used to working in this small team where we were all on the same level, and suddenly coming in there where I was just like the top creative above and was treated above everyone else, it's also sort of like a lonely feeling that you miss being in your team in a sense.
And what about like decision making, for example? How is that affected by this hierarchical?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing that is very different in the US. I just have to talk about my experience. I feel like you're getting paid to make decisions in the US. That's really what they pay you to do. And people are scared in general of making decisions. Nobody wants to make decisions and take the responsibility of making decisions unless they're at that pay level. And you have to remember that it's in the US, it's sort of like if you lose your job, the way to ending up on the street is so much shorter than in Scandinavia, so that there is a real fear within people working, and fear of making the wrong decisions. But that took me a long time to understand over there, why everyone was, when something bad happened within production, everyone started pointing fingers. And I was sort of like, why can't we just like figure out the problem and then not do it the next time? Why are we? But it's fear driven in a different way, but for good reasons. Because if you lose your job, then that could be it for your career. While here or in Norway, it's sort of like if you lose your job, well then you get paid anyway and everything is fine. But I think that makes people maybe work harder, but also they work with more fear. And I think creative people work the best with like freedom and joy. You know, when your work is done when it's fear-based, it's sort of like it restricts you in a different way.
And how was that for you, navigating in that landscape when you come from a total different culture?
I was completely...
Like, what did you
I was
learn?
so lost the first months. I didn't know. No, I think for me it was because we worked one way in Norway. So trying to create an environment where we could work that way in the US was probably the biggest struggle. But when I realized that the key was to make everyone safe and showing them that if they fucked up, they wouldn't get blamed, like we just had to fix the problem, it felt like that was when they sort of relaxed and the work flowed easier in a sense. But it was also coming to a place producing a show in a very different way than they were used to. Some crazy Norwegian is coming over with a show and she's insisting on us to produce it in a specific way, and it doesn't sound like something, it doesn't sound right. So talking about like being strong in your vision, that was probably the biggest challenge in my career up until now, having to like stay strong, believing in the vision, believing in how to produce that show, and then convincing everyone else that that was the right thing to do, even though I didn't really know because everything is different. So
time is running.
Yeah.
I guess you can't really talk about it, but what's next? What are you doing right now?
Well, I'm writing at the moment something. I have a project that I'm really excited about and that I hope will be.
So do you already have a broadcaster on board?
Yes,
or?
yeah. So I'm crossing my finger. It's a crazy project, but I'm working really hard to make it happen, and hopefully someday you'll see it.
Any
No.
timeline? No, nothing.
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, we have to end here. Thank you so much for coming, Julie.
Thank you.